Simelang Absheni Ralocha Sanwanani Mulweni. My name is Naledi Mfoloe, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the latest edition of the African Diaspora News channel, where we unravel the stories that shape our world and our communities. The situation in Sudan continues to evolve in ways that are both alarming and deeply concerning. Today, we find ourselves at the crossroads of geopolitical tension and humanitarian devastation and African resistance. Now, on Tuesday, May 6, 2025, Sudan's army-aligned government made a powerful statement in the face of external interference, which is cutting diplomatic ties with the United Arab Emirates after accusing that the Gulf state has been supplying drones and weapons to the Rapid Support Forces and the paramilitary group fighting against Sudan's military forces. Now, this decision has profound implications, and not only for Sudan's internal struggle, but I do believe for the broader African struggle for sovereignty in the face of foreign interference. Let's have a look at this video and come and discuss.
ظل السودان بأثره يتابع ولأكثر من عامين.
Sudan has been following for more than 2 years the crime of aggression against Sudan's sovereignty, unity of its lands and security of its citizens by the United Arab Emirates through its local proxy, the terrorist Rapid Support Forces militia and its political supporters. When the UAE became certain of the defeat of its local proxy, which was defeated by our legitimate armed forces tasked with protecting the homeland and preserving its capabilities, it escalated its support and devoted more resources to the rebellion with advanced strategic weapons. It continued to target vital facilities and services in the country, most recently targeting oil and gas facilities, the port and the airport of Port Sudan, power stations, and hotels, and endangered the lives of millions of civilians and their properties, which threatens regional and international security, particularly Red Sea security. Following this continued aggression, the Security and Defense Council decided, first, declaring the United Arab Emirates a hostile state. Second, severing diplomatic relations with it. Third and finally, withdrawing the Sudanese embassy and general consulate. In accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter, which gives states the right to self-defense, Sudan reserves the right to respond to aggression through all means to preserve the country's sovereignty and unity of its lands, and to ensure the protection of civilians and continued access to humanitarian aid.
Now let's break this down. For those who may not know, the RSF, which was once a proxy force under the command of Sudan's current military leader, Abdel, has been waging war against the government since April 2023. And now, after months of conflict, the RSF has not only taken control of the vast territory in Sudan, but it has become heavily reliant on the drones, which, according to Sudan's military, are actually being supplied by Abu Dhabi. So these drones have been actually striking key infrastructure, including Port Sudan, which is the last remaining safe haven for displaced civilians and the critical lifeline for humanitarian aid, Port Sudan's international airport, and a vital artery for the delivery of food, medical supplies, and aid has now come under attack for these 3 consecutive days. And these strikes have grounded flights, crippled the city's infrastructure, and actually sent thick smoke rising over a city already suffering from the aftermath of the war. But what does this all mean, right? Why should this concern us as Africans? I think first and foremost, it's important to understand the gravity of the situation. The UAE, which is a powerful player in the Gulf, has long had interest in Sudan, including the investments in the country's mining and agricultural sectors. And it's no secret that Sudan has been rich in gold, oil, and other natural resources. But these resources have long been exploited by foreign powers, which have often with little benefit to the people of Sudan themselves. So this situation reveals a very disturbing pattern of neocolonial exploitation, where foreign powers, often disguised as allies or investors, use their influence to fuel conflict and instability in African nations, ensuring that their grip on the continent's wealth remains unshaken. And in the case of Sudan, the RSF's drones sourced from UAE are not just a tool of war, but they are a symbol of how foreign powers continue to manipulate African conflicts for their own gain. And the UAE's role in supplying weapons to one of Sudan's most deadly paramilitary factions is nothing less than external interference. And Sudan's response, cutting ties with Abu Dhabi, I believe, is a powerful message of resistance. Sudan has declared that the UAE is an aggressor state and shut down its embassy in the Gulf. And this is no small move if you think about it, but it reflects the growing recognition across Africa that must reject the exploitation and interference that has historically been carried out by foreign powers, especially in times of conflict. Now, what is happening in Sudan is not an isolated incident, but the UAE's actions in Sudan are just one example of the larger geopolitical game being played across the continent, where powerful nations try to use African conflicts as stepping stones for their own agendas. And in the case of Sudan, the UAE has, through its support of the RSF, contributed to the destruction of the country and the suffering of its people. And let's not ignore the human cost of these attacks. The UN has warned that damage to Port Sudan's airport, which serves as the primary entry point for international aid into the country, could actually worsen the already horrible humanitarian crisis. And it's quite sad because Sudan is already facing the world's largest hunger crisis because nearly 25 people are in desperate need of food, and the conflict has displaced millions, yet this war continues, fueled in part by foreign interests. The recent drone strikes on Port Sudan are just one part of the larger picture, which is a picture where the violence is escalating and the suffering is growing. And let's not forget that the victims of this war, which are the Sudanese people, whose lives have been torn apart by the unending conflict, which was not started by them, but are forced upon them by foreign interests and internal power struggles. But there is a ray of hope. Sudan is sending a message that we will no longer accept the exploitation of our people and our resources. And honestly, I'm so proud of the Sudanese people. What do you think? Let's continue the conversation in the comment section. I'd really like to hear what your thoughts are on this. And while you're at it, don't forget to give this video